Well, good afternoon there, Facebook world. Welcome to Facebook Live in our summer series. My name is Jen Bengal from Out of This World Literacy, and I'm really excited to talk to you about today's topic, which is all about the Squircle. You might not have ever heard what a Squircle is before, but I'm about to share with you what it is, and it's going to be a great way for you to get everyone actively involved in your lessons in the next school year. So before I get started with that, I give you a minute to hop on, but I wanted to remind you, you can always go back and watch replays of the Facebook Lives. Here is our calendar, and we've already done a few of the topics. So we've talked about how to keep mini lessons mini. We've talked about a reading conference. Hi, Jamie. We've talked about anecdotal notes, and actually, I showed you how to take anecdotal notes and how to organize them. So yesterday I did this and showed you how to organize your notes in a binder. So you can always look back on my Facebook page and watch all of those old videos. Hello, Catherine. Welcome. If you're just joining, feel free to say hello or send me a little wave. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know where you're from or maybe what grade you teach too. Even if you're watching a replay, you can always leave a comment. I like to check them after I get off of the lives. Hello, Christy from Missouri. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so today's topic, I got my little notes here with my highlighter. It's all about a Squircle. So if you've never heard of a Squircle before, oops, I gotta turn my notifications off on my computer. There we go. If you've never heard of a Squircle before, it's basically a square/circle. And so we call it a Squircle. The kids love it. They think it's really fun. Hi, Christy. Welcome. And what we do is we use the Squircle as a way to sit together as a class when we're learning in a mini lesson or when we're communicating in a share at the end of a workshop, or also when we're doing an interactive read aloud or doing vocabulary. So basically I use the Squircle throughout the day in all of my mini lessons, all of my shares, and when we do our interactive read aloud time. Hello, Jamie, third grade from Georgia. Christy is from hot Houston. It's hot here too. I live in the deep south, so I know exactly what kind of heat you're talking about. Stay cool. So basically, with a Squircle, the kids come together, and I like to have a carpet in my classroom. Some people don't have enough space for it, but if you have a space in your classroom to put a big giant carpet, start thinking about where you're going to get that from and what you're going to use it for. One year, I remember I actually contacted some carpet stores in our local area and told them that I was a teacher and looking for some carpet for my classroom. Maybe somebody had returned an order for carpet, or they had some old scraps that they could give me, and I actually was able to get for free this huge piece of carpet for my classroom. So that might be an idea if you want to try and contact some of your local carpet stores and ask them if they have anything they could donate to you. Be a pretty cool thing to get. But even my sixth graders, when I was teaching sixth grade, sat on the carpet. They weren't too big and they weren't too fussy about it because I really made it a big deal and really fun. They came and they sat with me. So with a Squircle, everyone sits in it's kind of round, it's kind of square. That's why we call it a Squircle. But what's great about it is we can all see each other. Nobody is back to anybody. So if I'm teaching, there's nobody that has their back to another student. We're all equal partners in the learning. That's one thing that's awesome about a Squircle. The other thing that's really awesome about a Squircle is you can easily have the kids turn and talk with each other in the lesson or during a share. So it's a great way for them to be able to be actively involved. Everybody can see each other. Everybody can have an equal partnership in the conversation. And also, it's really a great way to teach them how to make eye contact because they're right next to each other. They can look at each other so they can learn how to make eye contact when somebody is speaking and they're learning to build their listening skills. And also when they're speaking to make eye contact to the people that they're talking to because they're right next to each other. They become active participants in the lesson. You're not the only one that has all of the knowledge to share. They equally have a role to play in teaching the class about whatever that skill is that you're talking about that day. I love doing it during an interactive read aloud because that's a time for the kids to be able to be actively involved in listening to the story, whatever we're reading together. So that's a good time to have a Squircle. Just basically giving everybody an equal chance. Now, this is also playing into building your classroom community. So as you're thinking about what you're going to do for your next school year, think about implementing the Squircle into your classroom and also how that builds your classroom community. One thing that I did at the beginning of every week on Mondays, I just did this on Monday mornings because it kind of sucked up time in our classroom, but it was such a valuable thing we did. We did something that was called one good thing, one bad thing. And we would get in our Squircle for our morning meeting on Mondays, and we would go around the room and we would share one good thing that happened over the weekend and one bad thing that happened over the weekend. It would take a little bit of time, but we only did it on Mondays, and the way we got to learn about each other that year was incredible because we took the time to actually talk. What was one good thing? What was one bad thing? And after about a month, I found myself learning more about my students than I had the previous year all year. It was incredible. I even took notes about things that they were sharing. I just made lists of topics. So I had one student who was on a traveling hockey team, and he always talked about his hockey that previous weekend. I was able to get him excited about reading by bringing in things that were related to hockey for him, and actually did a little bit of my own research to learn about hockey so that I could make a connection with him, because kids are going to learn best from us when we build relationships with them. So taking the time to sit in that Squircle and have that one good thing, one bad thing kind of weekly conversation is super valuable. If you don't have a lot of time, you can have the kids turn and talk with a partner that's sitting next to them about one good thing and one bad thing, and then have a few of them share with the class. But I like to go around the entire room and have everybody share one good thing and one bad thing that happened over the weekend. And I share too. So that's kind of something that I do to build classroom community and get to know my students even more right off from the beginning of the year too. Hello, Regina and Catherine. Regina says, back again. Love listening to your wisdom. Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, I've got my hot flashcards, not hot flash, but my flashcards to answer. These are questions, if you haven't been live with me, these are questions from teachers just like you that are in my curriculum group that have asked me to answer these. So I have today, Jill Sims is the first question that I'm answering. Jill asked the question, when teaching older elementary students, is it better to teach small groups based on reading level or by strategy? Great question, Jill. Thank you for sending that in. The answer I have for you is when we teach in small groups, the whole goal for us to be in a small group is so that we can meet our students at their instructional levels, so the differentiated levels that are in our classroom. For example, if we teach fourth grade, when we do our mini lesson, that usually covers a fourth grade standard, whether it's in reading or writing or spelling or language. It's covering a whole grade level standard that we need to address. When we get into our small groups, that's when we take that standard or that strategy and we differentiate it within their ability levels. So when you're meeting with your small group, you want to have them differentiated at their ability levels. Now, sometimes you do a strategy group, which can be short term. You might meet with a small group that's always struggling with summarizing. You might meet with them for a couple times and then you're done. But your guided reading groups are most of the time working with students at their instructional levels. And there's a lot of research about that. One of my favorite child psychologists and researchers was Leif Vygotsky, and he always talked about that zone of proximal development. And when students are learning at their optimal zone of development, that is when they're making the most progress as readers. And that zone is actually just outside of what they know, but not too far out where it's too confusing. Like me trying to read a medical journal would be way too frustrating. But I also don't need to read a first grade book because I'm better than a first grade reader, right? It'd be too easy. So it's finding that zone of proximal development, and that's what we're doing in our small groups. So find that and work with them there. And you can work on the strategies there as well, because no matter what level students are at as readers, they all need to understand how to summarize, right? They all need to understand how to make predictions and make connections and analyze, whether they're a level C reader or a level X reader. They're still going to need to learn how to do those skills. So think of it as those strategies are within those groups at a differentiated level. So yes, thank you. Andy is behind the scenes putting a few points in here. Let me pull this up. This is a link right here to a Facebook Live I did. I don't know if it was last summer or the summer before, but it actually talks about guided reading versus strategy groups, and there's a freebie on that one too. So you can go back when we get off this live if you want to listen to me more. You can, and you can listen to this old Facebook Live about guided reading versus strategy groups. So that question is from Jill. Thank you, Jill. Next question. ding, ding, ding. Carla Neely. She asked, how often should the students' ability levels for the books used for guided reading be assessed and changed? So in other words, she's asking how often should you assess your readers and move them in different levels for reading? So basically, to answer this question, there's two types of assessments. There's your benchmark assessments, and then there's like running records that you would do. So benchmark assessments are something that you would do at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, you're finding out what is their baseline ability level. And then you're setting goals for daily instruction based on that. And then you'll benchmark again in the middle of the year to see if you met those goals, and then again at the end of the year. So those are your benchmark assessments. I wouldn't recommend doing them more than that. Beginning, middle, and end of the year. Now, the other type of assessment is that running record assessment. That's when you're going to be collecting data on students as they're reading throughout the year. So some students you'll be doing running records more often than others. It's basically a snapshot into their reading to see how they're decoding, how they're rereading, are they self-correcting, are they monitoring and searching for information, how are they doing? And that's when you can kind of assess and see if they need to move in reading levels through their day-to-day instruction. So if you are working with students who are significantly below grade level at like a tier 3 intervention, one-on-one, they're 2 years, 3 years, 4 years below grade level, I would recommend doing a running record with them once a week. If you're working with kids who are a year below grade level or maybe a year and a half below grade level in a tier 2 intervention, I would recommend working on running records with them every other week and collecting that data and plotting it so you know they're making progress throughout the year. You can say for sure, yes, this student is making reading gains. It's not just your gut or you think it's happening. No, here's the actual data to prove it, right? So we need to do that. If they're on grade level, then whenever you feel it's appropriate, that's when I would do a running record with them. So if they're on grade level and you're wondering, they've been in this guided reading group that's a level JK for several months now, and I feel like they're ready for maybe an LMP kind of group, and LMNP, LP, whatever. Oh my gosh, I can't do the alphabet. LMN group. Then maybe you want to do another running record with them and see and try them out in a higher reading level. And teaching is always just, recalculating things. So you might try them out in a different group. And if it's too frustrating for them, if it's beyond their instructional level, you can always switch them back then. So when it's appropriate for kids who are on grade level, do a running record and see if they're ready to go to that next level. If they're above grade level, you can still do that as well too. We want to still challenge our advanced readers. So keep doing running records on your advanced readers. When you feel like they can go even higher, try it out with a running record and see. So that's my answer. And you can also do running records before parent-teacher conferences if you want to be able to have some more data to give the parents when you sit down with them at that conference. You can do a running record with them then. Hello, Priscilla. I'm glad you're on here. Hi, Jill. Hello, Eva. Welcome. Okay, next question is from Hallie Bushhouse. Hallie, if you're on here, this is her question. Is it more beneficial to teach academic vocabulary words or morphemes and word parts to upper elementary students? And how would you incorporate that into a literacy block? Good question. So she's asking, should I teach vocabulary or more like word parts and chunks in my upper elementary kids, and where would I put that in my block? So what I would do is I would actually teach vocabulary to my students in upper elementary. So I have a vocabulary curriculum, and we're going to pop a link up if you want to take a look at it. You can actually try a week for free. And basically it teaches tier 2 vocabulary words for about 15 minutes a day intentionally to the students. So they really need that vocabulary support. Vocabulary is so closely tied to reading comprehension and also just understanding multiple meanings of words. So take the time to have a vocabulary curriculum. Now you can work on morphemes and word parts, but I would do that in my spelling curriculum. So I have a differentiated spelling curriculum as well, where I have a focus mini lesson each week on spelling, and that covers like patterns and word chunks and suffixes, prefixes, Greek, Latin words, all of that. So I'm going over all of that stuff in my spelling. So I see it as like a vocabulary and a spelling thing. Now you can also do things where you have the kids in the upper grades work on word work in literacy centers. And that actually leads me to my next question, which came from Chantel McLaren. And she said, what is your advice on incorporating decoding and spelling into upper grades without making it seem too babyish? And I totally get this. I've taught 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So I know what you mean about making things too babyish. So words for my kids for upper elementary. So I actually created word work for big kids because I saw that they still needed that. When I was teaching in the classroom, my kids still needed that work on morphemes and difficult spelling complexities and stuff like that. But we weren't doing it as much in our whole group instruction. So I created literacy centers for them to work on it. And actually we'll pop a link up for that. But spelling curriculum, you can do whole group on. And then if they need more support in word work, you can do that in centers. You can have them put word work in centers. It's graphic organizers that they work with and it has different focuses. You can also use them in guided reading. So if you're working with upper elementary kids and you want to do some word work in guided reading, you can grab one of those graphic organizers that focuses on a skill that they need. And say it's like tricky vowels and patterns of tricky vowels. You can do that focus skill at the end of your guided reading group too. Or you can put it in a center. You can have them work with partners, small groups, take it home. So however you want to use those are super versatile. But that's what I would recommend for those. Let's see. Christy asked, do you have a running record checklist? So do you mean like what you would do in a running record, like how to write your teacher notes while you're listening to a student? If that's what you're asking, I do actually have a free training on that. It's a benchmark assessment that I do, and I go over how I do running records and how I do the comprehension assessment and vocabulary assessment too. I'm going to have that webinar free to watch in July. So pretty soon I'll be putting out my July free webinar trainings, and you'll get to see that and register for that one too. So Christy, I will have that. Those are all going to be at jenbengalwebinars.com. So I'll have that free training for you in July. Okay, Deborah Stone says, is it necessary to meet with every group every day? Great question. Hi, Pamela. I love your comments. You're so sweet. Aw, don't call me a genius. That's scary. That's a lot of pressure. But I appreciate you. Okay, Deborah said, is it necessary to meet with every group every day? Great question. I'm so glad you asked this because I'm sure other teachers are wondering the same thing. In my opinion, I believe that you don't need to meet with every guided reading group every single day. For your kids who are below grade level, who are really needing that extra layer of support beyond the whole group instruction, I do recommend you meeting with them every day. Whether it's 15 minutes a day, or it's 20 minutes a day, or it's 10 minutes a day. Try and see them at least once a day. For your kids who are on grade level, you really only need to see them about twice a week. And then the kids who are advanced, you might only see them once a week. But you'll be training your kids who are advanced to work on their own in literature circles or doing their own book clubs. I'm actually going to be doing a webinar about literature circles this summer, and I talk about literature circles and how I scaffold them out to be working on their own in the webinar I'm doing tonight. Is anyone coming to the webinar on guided reading tonight? I'm doing my live webinar tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central on guided reading. So I'm super excited about that. It's the only time I'm hosting it live in June, and I hope you're coming. There's a lot of people signed up. There's almost 800 people signed up right now. So hopefully you can come. Teachers from all over the world are going to be there. I'm actually giving away a bundle for guided reading tonight for anyone who shows up live. There's going to be one lucky winner. Regina's going to be there. Whoop, whoop. Awesome. I'm so excited. Okay, my last question is from Susan Marie. Christy's going to be there. Yay. I'm excited, Christy. Susan Marie says, older elementary. I have one student reading way below grade level. What is your advice on including them in literature circle reading? This year I have, in 5th grade, abilities that range from 3rd grade to 9th grade. Isn't that amazing how every year we have kids at such different levels? Ava's coming. Priscilla, it will be there. Woohoo! You guys are awesome. And Catherine's going to be there. Yay! Jill said 801. I just got signed up. Jill is 801. You're awesome, Jill. Okay, so Susan, sometimes when I'm live, I go all, like there's 1,000 things bouncing in my head. Okay, so Susan says, how do I help my lower readers be actively involved in literature circles? What you can do, and I really recommend this, and Fountas and Pinnell recommends this too. I've done a lot of research lately about literature circles because I'm doing a webinar. So every time I prepare a webinar, I do a lot of research. I read a lot of professional development books to make sure that I'm delivering the information that's supposed to be the most accurate and best practice. And they say that to have them listen to that book, if you have them listen to the book on tape or on an app or have somebody read it to them beforehand, those are all totally appropriate. You want your kids, especially who are below grade level, you want them actively involved in literature circles. Because reading, if you make reading for them a social engagement, it's going to be fun for them. Kids love to talk to each other. They love to hang out with their friends. So keep them actively involved. Another thing about reading to consider is in our brains as humans, we all have just a limited amount of brain power. Some days we have less than others, if you hear me. But our kids are the same way. They have a limited amount of brain power. So for the kids who are struggling with reading and decoding, they have to use a lot of brain power to focus on what is this word actually sounding out to mean. And they don't get a lot of time to pay attention and use their energy to the comprehension end of it. So by taking away the decoding, having them listen to the story, they can spend all their brain power on the comprehension, and then they can be active participants in that literature circle. So it's totally appropriate to have kids who are below grade level listen to the story, have it read to them, whether you read it to them, have their parents read it to them at home the night before. However, they need to get that story in their brains so that they can become socially engaged in conversation in that story with their literature circle group. That will build their motivation for reading. It will get them excited. It will level the playing field on their ability to communicate during the group. And you should not expect kids who are reading at a 3rd grade level to be able to independently read a 6th grade level text and then go talk about it with a group. It's not really going to set them up to be successful there. So just give them the opportunity to listen to the story first, is my best advice. Jacinda says, where do we sign up? There we go. I'm going to pop up. Andy just put this. Thank you, Andy. He's in the kitchen. He's in the kitchen on his computer pretending to be me. So you can sign up at jenbengalwebinars.com. And that's where the guided reading is. So for guided reading tonight in a webinar, it's a little bit different than Facebook Live. You do have to sign up, which you'll get an email with a special code that will be just for you. So when the webinar starts, all you do is go in there about 10 or 15 minutes before and click that link, and it will take you to where you need to be. You'll see my slides pop up, and you'll hear me talking about 10 minutes before we start the webinar. So that's where we're going to be tonight. You also get there's a free workbook when you sign up. You'll get a link to that when you register. And then I'm going to give you all of my notes tonight for free too. You'll get a certificate of participation, so you can share that with your administrators, and hopefully they'll give you professional development hours for it. You'll also get some other free and fun little things too. So you'll get to hear me talk about all the 6 steps that I use in guided reading. It's for all grade levels. So if you use guided reading in 8th grade, you can come to this webinar, because the 6 steps in guided reading that are best practice are all the same from the lowest levels to the highest levels. So if you use the guided reading framework, then I recommend you come to the webinar. Okay, let's see. Catherine has a question. I gotta move this over. Will you give the titles of the PD books you recommend for reading and literacy? I'm spending the summer doing a lot of reading. Yes, I will give you the titles. Actually, I'll do you one better than that. I'll get up and grab them and show you on live. You want me to go do that? Okay, give me a minute. Okay, I'm back. I promise I have pants on. They're right here. Okay. All right, so these are my 3, the trifecta of books that I have. And these are probably old. I'm sure there's newer versions out right now, but you know like how textbooks are, they give you the newer version, but it's really like 2 pages are different, so you're good. This one is Guiding Readers and Writers by Irene Fountas and Gesu Pinnell. You can see how much I have this marked up in here, but this is just a really great book about guided reading and writing workshop. It goes over all of your like core stuff. It even has like in the beginning of it, which is really cool. It has like a sample day of a teacher's typical day. So that's really, really, really good to just, even if you have this book, like I have not read this whole book, okay? But I go through and I pick out the parts that I want to read that are relevant to me at that time. So this is a really good one to reference. I've had it for like 10 years. The other one that I have is a mess too. This one is called Teaching Look at this. There you go. Teaching for Comprehension and Fluency. And it's for grades K through 8. And it's about talking about how comprehension and fluency are tied together. So there's a ton of information in this one that's really, 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 really super helpful. And it has like a CD in it too. So it gives you some handouts in there about that. And then the last one is kind of my all-around go-to book. This one I've had forever. I'm sure there's a newer version. If you look this up on Amazon, it probably doesn't look like this anymore, but it's the same information. It's called The Continuum of Literacy Learning by Irene Fountas and Gay Pinnell. And this one, you can get them just for like K2 or just for upper grades, but this one happens to cover all of the grades, so pre-K through 8. And it has guided reading, all of the levels for guided reading, A through Z, what to expect in those levels. That's probably my favorite section of this book. So you can see, here's an example. This is level C. It shows you exactly how to select the text at level C. And then on the next page, it gives you all of the strategic actions that a reader at a level C should be able to do. So this is like the holy grail, y'all. If you're stuck with a kid, if you're like, I don't know if they're going to be an H or they're going to be an I, you can compare what an I is with what an H is, and you can see the different bulleted objectives and what the kids will probably be able to do at each of those levels. So this is a really, really good book. It also, in the back, has a continuum for spelling, so different spelling skills and what grade level are appropriate. You can see I have this all marked out. Word structure, all kinds of different things, word solving actions, like what grade level should be able to do these specific skills. So this is actually one of the books that I reference before I create any curriculum. I make sure I match this with standards and with other books that I use to make sure that I am correctly implementing the objectives for each grade level that I'm doing in the work that I'm creating. Hopefully that helps, Catherine. Those 3 are like the big ones. Nicole said I have that one too. Awesome. Kelly asked how many professional development hours. So the webinar is about 45 minutes. So the certificate says 1 hour. So the certificate for tonight's webinar for guided reading you will get for 1 hour. Now, let me just say that I cannot personally give you the professional development because I have teachers that come from all over the world. Barbados, I know there's some that come from Spain, South Africa, Australia, Canada, and of course all the 50 United States. Every state and every country has different requirements for their professional development. So I cannot give them to you on my end, but I always say, take your certificate and take your notes from the webinars and ask your administrators if you can get professional development hours. And a lot of teachers are able to do that. Even if you need me to, can give you my credentials. I have a postgraduate degree in reading. I trained with Irene Fountas. So if they need all of that to convince them, we can do that too. Okay, so I think that I have all of my questions covered tomorrow. Okay, so those of you who have been watching me every day, I wanted to tell you quickly. Tomorrow I'm actually going to be live during the day again because I've got some stuff that came up that I have to do at night. I was supposed to be live tomorrow night at 8, but I'm going to be live tomorrow at 2 o'clock again at the same time that I am right now. So just if you wanted to watch me live, come at 2. I'm going to make a little note of that in my Facebook page too, though. And what are we talking about tomorrow? Let me see if I can find. Tomorrow we're talking about, the parking lot. I'm going to talk about the parking lot for teachers. This is a really cool strategy that I use to keep my lessons flowing and not get too distracted with teachable moments that come up. I'm going to show you what I do with a parking lot tomorrow. So that'll be at 2 o'clock Central, same time we are now. And I'll answer some more of these questions I got going on back here from teachers. So that's all I have for you today. Take care, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me, and tell your friends to come watch again. And I will see you in the next Facebook Live or in tonight's webinar. Bye, guys. Have a good day.